Welcome back to some more Ace Attorney. God, it's been so long. Long court recess, but it's time to get right back into it, and hopefully I won't fuck up, because I only have 2 lives. The victim? But that's where the victim, Detective Goodman, was. Oh my god. I fucked up. Oh my god. I swapped him around. I forgot they're saying Minkins is the killer. Correct, unless the man wasn't Detective Goodman. I believe the victim in the video is Officer Marshall. It was you dressed up like Detective Goodman. But that's preposterous. Officer Minkins witnessed the detective at the crime scene. Once he saw the man's face, he'd known for sure. I point out, though, that Officer Minkins did not know Detective Goodman. He also testified about the man's reaction when confronted. When I entered the evidence room, I asked him to show his card, sir. Yes, and how did Detective Goodman respond? He suddenly pulled a knife on me. Something about the officer's story puzzled me. If the man had his ID card, why didn't he just show it? Yes, he would have needed it to enter the evidence room, so he must have been carrying it. The answer is simple. He couldn't show it. As you can see, Detective Goodman's picture is on the ID card. Oh, I get it. If he showed that, his cover would have been blown. Officer Minkins would have realized the man wasn't Detective Goodman. Do you have anything to say about, to this, Officer Marshall? You've got quite an imagination, partner. We got a term for that. It's called circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence? He's still denying it. You're gonna have to do better than that to break a detective. Unless you have hard evidence proving I dressed up as the victim. I can't say I particularly care for your uncooperative disposition. I can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence? Any evidence proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Officer Marshall dressed up as the victim? Well, who am I kidding? I don't have anything like that. I can see the fear in your eyes, partner. Seems you're the one who couldn't take the desert heat. This can't be happening. It's so obvious he's the one. What can I do? It looks like your lack of experience has finally been exposed. I'll pass on to you. That's what someone told me when I was just starting out. When you've run into a wall with no place to go, return to the basics. The basics? For me, that would be what Mia used to tell me. Try thinking outside the box. I shouldn't look for proof that Officer Marshall was in disguise. But rather, I should look for evidence that came about because he was in disguise. Why do you think this locker was open in the first place? What do you mean? There's no reason for Officer Marshall to open his locker at the time of the crime. Yet he did, despite the chance it might be discovered later as it has been. Which means he didn't originally plan to open his locker. According to the defense's argument, Officer Jake Marshall dressed up as Detective Goodman at the time of the crime. Then after the crime was committed, he opened his own locker for some unknown reason. The fact that a white cloth is sticking out of the locker seems to indicate that. He opened it in order to put the cloth inside. So, just what exactly is this piece of cloth? Perhaps the video is the key to all our unanswered questions. I don't have any evidence that this video is my only shot. Very well. Let's take yet another look at the security tape. After committing the crime, the witness opened the locker to put away the white cloth. Please show us what the witness had to open his locker. Okay, what's that? Could it be that? There wasn't anything here that was stuck. Just because I don't feel like losing here, let's take here.
Take that!
What do you have to say to that? Alright, partner. You really want to know the reason I had to open my locker? Why? So I could stuff you in there. What? I'm sure the world would be a better place if you sent off to the boneyard. Unfortunately, unsolved cases can't be stored in the evidence room. No, I'm in an unsolved case. No. And this is why. I fucking hate evidence. Anything. Oh, hello. Fucking blood, boy.
Take that!
This count? For some reason, you disguised yourself as Dr. Goodman, Detective Goodman, and entered the evidence room. And I don't know what that reason was yet. However, something unexpected happened. Officer Meekins barged in on you. When asked to show your ID card, you pulled a knife on him. However, Officer Meekins panicked, and the white coat you were wearing was soiled with blood. A bloody white coat. You couldn't just walk out like that, so you hid the coat in your locker. Not bad, huh, partner? Now then, Officer Marshall. Are you ready to tell us the truth? Looks like I underestimated y'all. I hope you're happy now, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, if you were only half as persistent then as you are today, we all wouldn't have to be here, now would we? Officer Marshall, tell the court what you did. All of it. All right, seems the time has come. Marshall's confession. I had to do it that day. I couldn't just stand by and let it die. I stole the detective's ID and dressed like him. I planned to take out the evidence. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins, so I knocked him out. I managed to escape, but I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on the camera. There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15. So the supposed victim was really you. But there's one thing I still don't understand. Large quantities of blood traces were found on the floor of the witness evidence room. If no one was murdered, then how could that be? Officer Meekins managed to cut his own hand. My guess is he's the donor. Looked like too much blood for that. Marshall's confession. Had to do it. When you say it, you mean... Do you even have to ask, partner? That's on that incident. 2 years had passed since that case was closed. It was going to completely end with the transferal of that day. Not if I have anything to do with it. That incident's not over. But what did you hope to accomplish by sneaking into the evidence room? When a case is closed, only a detective who was in charge of it can look through the evidence. I wanted to have a look at it myself one more time, no matter what the cost. I don't care what anyone says, partner, that case is mine. But Officer Marshall wasn't in charge of that investigation. Why does he care so much about it? That day was my last chance. That's why I stole the detective's ID and dressed like him. I planned to take out the evidence. Why did you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman? If I didn't make it look like Goodman was carrying out the evidence transfer, I'd be arrested for stealing evidence, which wouldn't get me anywhere. So you did it to fool the security camera. And the detective's ID card? I stole that the morning of the incident. So that really was why Goodman started filling out that lost item report. I returned his ID. I left it on the floor in the prosecutor's office parking lot. The ID card I found was left there by Marshall. So essentially, you managed to succeed despite your lack of foresight. What do you mean, partner? I mean the fingerprint-activated lock, of course. No matter how well you disguise yourself, you can't change your fingerprints. Normally, that locker shouldn't have opened. So it opened because a rubber glove was stuck in the door by chance. Then Detective Goodman must have opened the locker before Officer Marshall. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out. You pulled a knife on Meekins and tried to divert him off? Let's just say I was a little surprised. I only planned on being in the evidence room for no more than 5 minutes. I didn't think anyone would actually come in during that short time. Officer Meekins certainly is a 1 in a million type person. mistaking a detective for an intruder and demanding him to show his ID. I'll have to think a little more about his raise this year. How did Edgeworth get so much influence? Anyway, he threw himself at me, and I ended up cutting him slightly. Sorry it had to turn out that way. With me knocking him out and everything. By the way, what happened to your knife? Oh, you mean this one? I don't know what to say. So what happened next? I managed to escape. I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on the camera. So you did your research beforehand. Those who go into the desert unprepared don't live long, partner. I didn't think it would make a difference, though. The security tape is erased every 6 hours if all had gone as planned. No footage would have been left. However, you bloodied your coat in your struggle with Officer Meekins. If someone was in the security room when I came out, the jig would have been up. I opened my locker and stashed it in there. What was Officer Meekins doing during that time? What else? He was sleeping like a baby. So what you're saying is on that day, there wasn't any murder in the evidence room. But the blood found at the scene certainly indicates a crime took place. What are you, blind? The victim show on that tape is me, and I'm not dead yet, partner. So you stole the evidence from the locker. Actually, no, I didn't. Why not? Then when I opened the locker, the evidence was already gone. What? Mr. Edgeworth, where's that evidence? It's still missing, Your Honor. Detective Goodman's locker was already empty. Someone else stole the evidence. Officer Marshall, may I ask you one thing? Fire away, partner. It's a free country. Just remember, I'm also free to decide whether or not to answer. Why'd you do it? Stealing a detective's ID, injuring a police officer. These are no small offenses. Moreover, you're an officer yourself. This will have serious consequences. It can't just be forgiven with a simple cut in the salary. Not that salary cuts are ever a valid solution. Like I said, this isn't your case. This one's mine. I'll do anything it takes to get an answer I'm satisfied with. The witness had an unusual amount of zeal. Let's hear more. I can't forget the SL9 incident. You know why? Why? But that case was solved 2 years ago, wasn't it? That's the reason the evidence was stored in the evidence room. Joe Dark was convicted for those crimes. One thing I can say for sure, he deserved his sentence. I remember the Joe Dark case. It involved serial murders, didn't it? I don't intend to complain about how it turned out. But there's something that still bothers me. Something went down at that trail. Something no one will talk about. What happened? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out. Why is he so concerned with that incident? Maybe I should present him with what I think is his real reason. I had a feeling we'd wind up here sooner or later. Everyone involved here is related in some way to that case. I'd better take another look at the files. Let's fucking go all the way back. And pull out these incident files.
Objection!
Officer Marshall, I think I understand. I think I know why you care so much about the SL9 incident. Sounds like you've been sipping too much cactus juice, partner. I've the SL9 incident file right here. The name Marshall is mentioned in here. In a list of murder victims. What? Neil Marshall. Are you related to this man? Oh. It's probably his brother. Neil Marshall. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the name. 2 years ago. Damn, looking good, Marshall. You received the same lousy prosecutor award you got. What? A prosecutor? You must be talking about the King of Prosecutors award. Now I remember. Prosecutor Neil Marshall. He handled the SL9 case before I did. That's right, he was killed. And the case fell into your hands. What's his relation to you? He was my brother. He was investigating the murders with Damon Gant, chief detective at the time. The group of detectives I was part of worked under them. We were desperate to prosecute the killer. Joe Dark. My brother fought Dark and was killed. That was the first time Dark left behind any evidence. That was all we needed. He was arraigned and incarcerated. The case was finally closed. At least according to the public records. What do you mean? My brother couldn't have been killed by Joe Dark. I knew my brother better than anyone. No one could have beaten him in a fight. And that's it? That's your reason for your insane actions? There's more to my brother's death than what the records say. No matter how much you try to hide it, you can't fool me. At least one thing's for certain. Now we know what happened at the police department on the day of the crime. That was the last day the SL9 case could be reopened. Not satisfied with its solution, Officer Marshall planned to steal the evidence. Disguising himself as Detective Goodman, he entered the evidence room. Officer Meekins confronted him, so he rendered him unconscious and fled. Yes, this mystery has finally been cleared up. No murder took place at the police department that day. The things that happen by chance never cease to amaze me. At exactly the same time as the murder at the prosecutor's office, this fake murder was going on at the police department. Chance? It's gotta be more than just that. So if no one was murdered at the police department on the day of the crime, that means the murderer in the prosecutor's office's parking lot was the real one. Which in turn means only one person could have committed the crime. Chief Prosecutor Elena Skye. But wait, a verdict wasn't reached in yesterday's trial. Which is why we examined the incident at the police department today, but there's only one reason the defendant was not convicted yesterday. There yet remained the mystery of this simultaneous murder at the police department. Seems to me this boy's got the draw on you, partner. All the mysteries at the police department have been uncovered. No contradictions remain. The murder took place at the prosecutor's office. The only suspect is Lena Skye. There were no errors in the testimony of the witness, Angel Starr. If you have a response, make it one word or less. Objection! Shit. I don't fucking know. Fuck. Fuck. I rest my case. Seems this trial has reached its conclusions. There's no room for doubt. Well done, Mr. Wright. Thanks to you, I didn't need to waste my time disproving the alleged murder at the police department. There's no doubt what I proved today is true. The apparent murder on the security camera's tape really was fake. If I didn't realize, that would end up proving Lena guilty. Now then, the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant. Oh my god. Your Honor, wait. Fuck. Emma. The defense has an objection, a scientific objection, right? What do you mean, right? Mr. Wright? Are you this girl's guardian? Your Honor, in a sense. Please, Your Honor, all I'm asking for is for a minute of your time. Please hear me out. Mr. Edgeworth, please. I don't want to leave any loose ends. You want a minute? I'll give you 3. I was kind of in shock. I mean, finding out that the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Dart killings. Now that she mentions it, the names of both Sky sisters were in that file. But that's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So I knew his fingerprint had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing, the other handprint. I mean, the traces of blood found on the Detective Gumshoe's locker. But no fingerprints were found on it, right? No, but I figured if I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So I ran over there and looked at it again. So did you do something? Did you find something? No. Huh. Sorry, I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all. Is that all? Please don't be mad, I'm just a high school student. And I'm just an attorney. But Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have left. If we can't find something wrong with them, please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional. If anyone can save Lena, it's you. Hey. Oh, boy. Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright, with regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain? It appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright, I'm sorry I can't be of more use. But still, if you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lena will be... Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. We don't have all day. Yes, Your Honor. If ever I've needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with that handprint on Detective Gumshoe's locker? Could there be something I'm missing? I object! Because it's always the answer. This handprint left at the scene of the crime clearly shows a contradiction. The only thing that seems clear is your grasping Mr. Wright. You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Yes, this is strange. Take a good look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? You mean something hasn't been drawn on there? Yeah, something that when drawn will completely change the meaning of the blood mark. Let's pray the defense isn't simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright. With all this evidence here, there's got to be something we can use. The question is, which item can prove something is missing from the floor plans? It would have to be this. Like, it has to be the missing... Because he wiped his fingerprints, why wouldn't he wipe those? As they say back west, even a blind man can hit with buckshot. That is, so long as he's facing the general direction. Seems Mr. Wright's not sure which direction to face. It's no use. The more evidence there is, the more wrong choices. Just calm down. Try and remember what the evidence room was like on the day of the crime. Thank God it doesn't actually cost anything good. I don't know. Fuck. What was there? A fucking rubber glove? Oh! Oh! Fucking oh! Oh my God. It's the giant fucking thing. It's the blue fucking badger. What about that piece of plywood? The blue badger. Mascot of the police force. Defender of truth. Guardian of proof. Explain yourself, Mr. Wright. Please look at the floor plans of the crime scene. The blue badger is not here. So watch what happens when we put him in. It covers that thing completely. This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. Well, what? Ah! That's right. So long as the blue badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot on the locker. What? Which means it either happened before or after. So that means, just what exactly does that mean? It means it can't be done. What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found on that locker. Don't look at me. I didn't put it there. Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically, Emma. On that afternoon, Officer Minkin was the one who brought the blue badger to the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would be impossible to leave a handprint on the locker. So that must mean this blood mark was left there before the blue badger was brought in. Just one moment. I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my courtroom. It may sound far-fetched, Your Honor, but it's the only possible explanation. On February 21st, in the police department's evidence room, blood was spilled not once but twice. How? One time was captured on the tape taken by the security camera. Officer Minkins cut his hand, from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is, the other time, someone bled prior to the struggle shown on tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman when he was really murdered. That's ridiculous. I refute you. The murder portrayed in the security tape had been proven to be fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found on the locker. So then, assuming this murder you purport really happened, when did it take place? I demand you show evidence that proves it occurred. When did the first incident occur? Summarize the defense claims that, prior to Officer Minkins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was disguised as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. The blood mark on the locker proves this. Very well. And tell us, when did this first incident occur? Proof must be presented. Proof that shows when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that. Now then, when will the defense please present its evidence? What shows when the first crime took place? It'd have to be, this thing. If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the perpetrator would have to have entered the room in order to do so. An ID card is required. An ID card? Oh, the ID card record. Officer Minkins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at, let's see here, 4:50 p.m. If the crime took place before that time, then it would be 4:40. Miles Edgeworth, just what have you done? I never figured you had nerve, boy. Put off the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me. Nope, I ain't getting it. I'm afraid I don't understand either. It's clear from the luminol test that the blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer. I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible. That would mean that the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room. Let's look at the chart again. Whoever 77777. There's only one other card number remaining. Talk about a lucky number. But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Officer Goodman have entered the evidence room? Since there's no record of his card being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in with the sevens. Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is 77777777777. That's 1 7 too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card. At least at present. What? Explain yourself, son. The ID number belongs to someone in a rank of captain or higher. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity. but that's ridiculous. Just how... I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge. You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates. I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you would keep your slander to yourself. Slander, is it? Okay. Let me ask a question. Yes? No, not to you. To her, the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive. Lena? Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course we've looked up her ID number, and it's not 777. Don't blame me for a fool, partner. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident. SL9 incident. Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In that trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence? Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At the time, occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least I did. Lena. I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law. Defendant, just what are you saying? I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did? Chief Prosecutor, you didn't. I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why don't you answer him? Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lena, even if it involved forging evidence, see, that's what I'm talking about. No. No! Order! Order! I swear to God. Lena's remarks caused such a stir. The chaos in the courtroom could not be quelled. The conclusion of the trial would have to wait until the following day. Jesus. Oh, God. This is such a fucking stressful case. Oh, save. Oh.